We'll also discuss the NVDA and particular firms. Before I head to UF, let me draw up this final chart. The market has been doing well this year. As of Thursday morning, the S&P and NASDAQ are both up 11% so far this year, but it's clear that there has been a significant, I suppose, correction. Yes, Chamath, 20% is correct territory. What do you think about the sell-off in the larger U.S. market? There will likely be a few very challenging modifications to historical data because I believe we are in a mild recession. When it comes to non-farm payrolls, it's more important to consider how frequently the statistic is updated than the actual quantity. In actuality, these things are continually revised, and at the moment, we are overestimating and revising less. Sachs brought up this point. GDP was no different. We are in a difficult position, I believe. The people who manage highly cyclical industries are telling us in plain English that there isn't any demand. The one that was intriguing this past week, Jason, was when you brought up millennials. However, Erben had a huge warning on demand, despite the fact that you assume all these young people are YOLOing whatever money they had. Accordingly, you're beginning to see the effects of the surplus capital, whether it was from the stimulus check or something else entirely, in these cyclical industries. The demand isn't there, in my opinion. We're in a recession, I believe. Powell will have to make a cut as it likely gets more apparent in Q3 and Q4. Will he overreact to the pressure? That is the question. This year, what's more popular than Nvidia stock? In the near future, the unique limited edition Nvidia keychain collectible could fetch hundreds or even thousands of dollars. In a matter of seconds, our original stock was gone. Cut 75 to 100 instead of 25 and go slowly. You can get yours right now by clicking the link below. All right, Freeberg, 2 consecutive quarters with negative GDP. By the technical definition of a recession, we're kind of bouncing along that, but we haven't had that. Is the recession inevitable, or do you think we'll see a beautiful recovery if they lower rates to the level that the markets are indicating and forecasting? What are your thoughts on the U.S. economy as a whole? Of course, government spending and inflation must be taken into consideration. How much of today's economic growth is being driven by government spending? The U.S. federal government will spend $7.3 trillion of the $25 trillion GDP next year, which is about 30% of GDP, and we are still clearly dealing with inflation. The true question is how much of the economy is expanding due to productivity gains in the sector where people are producing goods and doing things, as opposed to the government using its borrowing and taxing power to boost economic growth by inflating figures, forcing money onto businesses, putting capital into the markets, and generating leveraged trades in the markets. So that's what I'm still worried about. As I stated last week, I continue to have serious concerns about a number of the economy's severely troubled sectors, including the manufacturing, industrial, and agricultural sectors. However, in the software and services industries, where you can raise prices and have a profitable business, you can keep expanding and looking good. However, there are numerous aspects of the U.S. and worldwide economies that are currently facing difficulties. Let's discuss this soft to bumpy landing sack. Low-end consumers are undoubtedly becoming weaker. People that shop for deals and wish to save money on services like Airbnb and Amazon are examples of bargain hunters. Higher-end services with higher prices such as Uber and some upscale stores are growing and claiming that the customer base is robust. During this earnings season, it was a tale of two cities, with some high-end people claiming that the low-end consumers were weak and the high-end consumers were strong. How likely is it that we will see a recession? Second question for you. I believe Elon was on Lex Fridman for about 8 days recently. Given how long he was on, it was almost like a record podcast. However, he mentioned that he had spoken with Trump about it, and VC has been vocal about this on our podcast and elsewhere. He was a prominent vice presidential candidate who advocated for drastically reducing government spending and increasing efficiency, but there would be opposition. Do you believe that it would have been too unpopular to sort of reveal that plan now as a presidential candidate in either party? And does the prospective GOP administration have a platform to drastically slash costs? I don't believe they have that plan, especially because I believe that a supermajority in Congress would be required to take such action, and I believe that this election will be too close to give any type of mandate, regardless of the outcome. Unfortunately, I do. Yes, these are significant changes. Consumer weakness is clearly evident, and I believe that professional investors are becoming increasingly concerned about the possibility of a recession. Last but not least, it's very obvious that the private sector is experiencing a recession if the effects of government expenditure are taken out of the equation. As we have been discussing, the government has been spending excessively. The government's deficit is 6% of GDP. The most recent Q2 growth figure was approximately 2%. Therefore, we would undoubtedly be in a recession if you forced the government to live within its means and cut its way back to balance. Our rate of growth would be negative. Therefore, I do believe that the economy is suddenly looking really precarious. I'm not sure if we will truly enter a recession in the next months. Okay, listen up. I want to ask the question to everyone present. You cannot dodge the difficult questions on the Allen podcast. You must respond to them. In a year, Chamath, will the market be up or will we be in a recession, which is defined as 2 quarters of negative GDP? Which scenario, a market upturn or a recession, is most likely to occur, which is more likely a percentage or just? Your next Freeberg. Those are not mutually exclusive. You're suggesting that after a year, I'm not really sure. All right, but I do believe that a technical recession is likely to occur. All right, so if you tend to, I'll simply go into recession. There won't be a recession in the upcoming year, but I also believe that the market has a good possibility of rising. I see now. All right, so the market rises even if we might see a recession. To elaborate, I do believe that people are addicted to efficiency. Thus, I agree with your prognosis. Employees will be let go and profits will continue to soar as these businesses are run so effectively. A few IT companies make up a small portion of the economy, but there are many markets where cutting knowledge workers is not an option, like the manufacturing, industrial, and market sectors. That's what the software economy, or knowledge worker economy, can do. The tech sector can do that, but most of the rest of the economy lacks the flexibility we have in our high-margin, rapidly expanding industry. It's a valid point in my opinion, but I can see that McDonald's, Starbucks, and a few other consumer shops are currently making efforts to scale their operations and provide $5 dinners or $3 coffees. Therefore, I do believe that management and the way these companies are operated have changed. I take it that's about a lower forecast. Therefore, they must reduce headcount when their revenue drops, and when their revenue projections must be lowered. That is not the same as increasing efficiency. In addition, they are closing stores and discontinuing ineffective programs and activities. Therefore, I simply believe that every sector will experience enormous efficiency. The theme for the upcoming year will be that. However, that means fewer jobs and less growth, isn't it? To be clear, you have less growth when you close stores. Reductions in employment occur when revenue growth is slower. Therefore, those are related to cost cutting. Profits can increase, right? Even if they are supported, contractions will still occur. One of the difficulties at the moment is that many food companies and retail businesses have been rising prices in an attempt to maintain profits, but they are reaching a natural turning point where customers stop purchasing. Where is this tipping point located? I'm not sure whether any of you have visited the store recently, but wow, it's quite pricey. The cost of everything at the grocery has increased by 50% or more, and this is essentially impossible. We can handle it, but for many individuals, this is a huge concern since, for example, you have to budget your life now and you spend less. When Nat and I are in PT, we visit the fishmonger first thing in the morning and buy fish for the family. We always ask ourselves, how can people really choose to eat healthy and local if they want to? Because it is so incredibly expensive. It's an entire fish. What was it? Tell us. Do you want to eat sole that has been caught locally? The price per kilogram is about $48. Whoa, all right. Additionally, it costs more than a restaurant. Therefore, you will need to spend between $150 and $200 to feed a family of 7, which is what we are. It isn't viable. That probably used to be $40 or $30, so it's not something that makes sense for enough people anymore. However, Freeberg is correct in saying that we are facing a very serious issue because these systems have essentially stayed the same for a very long period, despite the fact that other sectors, such as the tech sector, have benefited from all these amazing efficiency.